welcome back everyone to another episode of the N.E.S.T podcast. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you taking an hour out of your time to join me on this lovely Wednesday evening. Now, what are we going to be talking about today? So today's subject was brought up by Jack Clark, Jack__Clark on Instagram. And we're going to be talking about steroids. And we're going to be discussing how they work. We're going to be discussing what they do, what ones, what steroids there are, and it's going to be a very interesting one. So tune in, grab a piece of pen and paper, and get ready to learn. So, what are steroids? In fact, a steroid is not what you may think it is. So steroids are not always, they don't always have to do with bodybuilders and one thing and another. Steroids, chemically speaking, are any organic molecule which has 17 carbon atoms in 4 rings, which also include cholesterol. So, technically speaking, cholesterol is also a steroid. It's got 17 carbon atoms, got 4 rings. So, yeah. Meg is looking at me and she seems very interested by this to start with. So what steroids will we be talking about today? There's a few types. Okay, so you have 2 types of anabolic steroids. Now, obviously, anabolic androgenic steroids are not, again, they're not the kind of steroids that bodybuilders tend to use, because anabolic androgenic steroids tend to be naturally found, which would mean they're found in the human body, and they have anabolic effects, which basically means stimulating growth, and they also have androgenic effects, which means basically give you male features, so facial hair, larger musculature, those kind of things, increase in testosterone. The kind of steroids we're going to be talking about today are synthetic anabolic steroids. So these are man-made. These are mainly derivatives of the hormone known as testosterone, which everyone will know that hormone if you go to the gym, because, everyone always raves about it for some bizarre reason. So a little bit of background. How do these things work? So, putting it very simply, whenever someone does exercise, let's say you're doing a bicep curl, all right? There's things in your muscles called filaments, all right? Actin and myosin, and basically every time you do a contraction, those things come together. So imagine 2 bridges, all right? And those bridges cross over each other, so they slide on top of each other. That is probably the easiest way to explain the sliding filament theory. So you've got 2 little strands, they cross over each other, leading to muscular contraction. So when strain is introduced to those filaments, the fibers create small tears, also known as micro tears. Now, those micro tears, obviously, your body realizes that there's something gone wrong, there's a tear, there's damage, so it sends amino acids, proteins over to fix that micro tear. So, for example, if you were to have a fracture, your body would send calcium over. And it's like, we gotta get this bad boy fixed, so send that over. Whereas now it's, obviously muscle, protein, it sends amino acids over, and proteins repair the fibers, therefore the fibers then increase in size and can also obviously increase in strength. Doesn't always translate, however, there is a chance. Now, what does testosterone have to do with these shenanigans that the muscle fibers, myosin and actin and protein have to do? So research has shown that lower testosterone actually means lower protein synthesis by the body. It also means lower muscle mass because there's minimal protein synthesis, and you also have higher lipogenesis, as we spoke about last week. Lipogenesis basically just means the generation as such of new fat molecules, which no one really wants. You don't want to be a chunky boy, all right? It's not healthy. It's not nice. So yeah. Increased testosterone, on the other hand, showed increased muscle protein synthesis, increased muscle mass, and decrease in fat. Now, so basically what that is saying is that if you've got higher testosterone or normal levels, the effects are the other way round, as if you were to have lower tests, which, to be fair, anyone could have probably told you that. Now, let's say if you do take excess amount of testosterone or another androgenic aid, let's just call them aids, what will happen? So your body is generating muscles so rapidly to the point where it actually needs more nuclei. So your muscle, each muscle cell has got a nucleus, and those nuclei also help in muscle protein synthesis. They are, in fact, the brain of the cell as such, right? So if it does not have enough nuclei, your body needs to find more. So therefore, satellites, what we call satellite cells, are recruited for their nuclei. And then basically satellite cells donate their nuclei to the muscle, turning it into myonuclei, which results in more muscle protein synthesis. I know there is a lot of scientific wording in there. Don't worry, it will all make sense. So satellite cells give over their nucleus to the muscle. The muscle then uses that nucleus to increase basically its muscle protein synthesis. That is a very broken down version, okay? This is not the version that a PhD student physiologist will tell you. This is just what a Greek guy on a podcast about sports science will tell you, okay? This is really seriously broken down again. So it's suggested that it also anabolic steroids also actually engage higher levels of lipolysis, which means fat burning. So not only does it give you more muscle protein synthesis, more muscular repair, it also gives you higher levels of fat burning. So at this point, you must be sat there thinking, you know what, this sounds like the stuff. I need to get me some of this. Hold your horses there, jockey. So PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs, are not all androgenic steroids. All right, so I'm about to go through some of these which are actually listed as performance-enhancing drugs. Now, some of these you will not expect there to be on there. All right, so you've got amphetamines, you've got cocaine, ecstasy, methylphenidate. So obviously you don't really expect cocaine to be in the performance enhancing drug section. However, it is technically classed as a stimulant. Now, what do these do? Again, these are stimulants, so they do not actually give you any of the above perks, the pros, the cons. So they will not make your dick your ball sack shrivel up. They won't do that. Not these ones. They're a little bit nicer. However, amphetamines will give you liver and kidney damage, hallucinations and violent behavior. Cocaine, on the other hand, will give you paranoia, panic attacks, possible addiction, and, in extreme cases, a heart attack. Ecstasy, let's not even fucking go there. I'm not touching that. That's you don't want to see that. So, obviously, these effects, these side effects, will vary per drug and what ingestion method you use. If you inject, if you take it orally, if you do whatever, if you shove it up your bum, they will have different effects and they will hit you differently. And it will hit you differently as a human being as well. So what might not affect me might affect you 10 times worse. And vice versa, do not get me wrong. Nicotine and caffeine, they're also actually classed as stimulants. However, they are not banned like the rest of them from competitive sports. obviously I'm not going to lie to you, I did not know nicotine was a stimulant until I saw this study. I wouldn't really class it as a stimulant, but then again, I don't really know that much about it. So let's go to the reason why everyone's here. Let's go to these anabolic steroids. So you know how they work now. What are they? You know, what is all the hype about? So anabolic steroids can be classed into two subcategories. All right, so you've got exogenous and endogenous. So exogenous, actually no, let's start with endogenous first. So endogenous is naturally occurring and involved in metabolic pathways of testosterone. So these will be, your anabolic androgenic hormones, basically. So that's one of them. Okay, so they're naturally occurring, whereas the other ones, the exogenous, are synthetic. They're basically synthetic versions of testosterone that are not found in the body. Nothing synthetic should really be found in the body, to be honest. If you do have something synthetic in your body, seriously, go get that checked out by a doctor. Like, you really need to get that looked at, son. So I went back and I looked at there's a guy on YouTube called Brandon Harding, right? And he's a bodybuilder, he's a YouTuber. He's not really a bodybuilder. He's more of a YouTuber than a bodybuilder in my head. And I looked at there's one of his videos where he literally goes over his full stack for steroids. Okay, so what he uses, he goes through every single one of these things. So keep in mind, this guy, he's not a pro, he has not won an Olympia, he's nothing like, let's say, like Phil Heath or Kai Green or anything like that. He's no Arnold Schwarzenegger. He is at this point, he still doesn't have his pro card. So he's not even a fully professional, competitor. All right. He does classic physique, and this is all the stuff that he uses. All right. So if we're to go with the not so, actually, no, let's go with those last. So we've got oxandrolone, which is Anavar, basically. Stano or stanozolol, which is Winstrol. You got mastrolone, which is Proveron. You got Clenbuterol. You got T3. You got anastrozole. You got testosterone propionate. You got gestanolone propionate, and you got trenbolone. And those are a few of kind of like an aspiring professional stack. All right, so in that alone, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 chemicals. Okay, and as I said, these are synthetic. These do not have, these are not found in your body. So these are also illegal to consume without provision of a doctor. So if you are to go take these, they're not exactly over-the-counter stuff. You can't just go to your local pharmacy and ask for a little bit of Tren. So I don't really know what to say to this, but other than those few, right, other than those 9, he also has a few other things. He's got melatonin, he's got 5-HTP, which is 5-hydroxytryptophan. And then you've got Support Max, which helps with liver. It helps protect the liver, the heart, the stomach, and cholesterol levels. So hydroxytryptophan works in synthesis of serotonin. And these are not my words. These are directly, this is from the guy's mouth. He said that he uses 5-HTP because sometimes when you are like cutting down, when you're dieting or whatever, you feel like absolute shit. He said that, like it's very difficult to take all of this and still be functioning as a normal human being. I'm paraphrasing this section. But what his words were, and this is now I'm not paraphrasing, he said, it's not worth it. All right. So he said, if anyone is considering doing this kind of shit and you're not considering of taking this professionally, if you are not debating taking this to a professional level to make this your career, it is not worth it. The amount of shit that he has to do, like he was saying that with Clenbuterol, it is basically, it was not designed for humans, okay? I can't remember exactly what it was designed for. It was created as, I believe it was to treat severe asthma or something like that, and it was to, micro doses, not the doses that these guys are taking. However, he was saying, like, he's driving to the gym and his arms are literally shaking because that is the effect that Clenbuterol has on your body. And T3 that I was saying, thyroid control, it basically keeps your thyroid active to the point where you basically just don't stop burning fat. That is why some of these guys can cut down on like 4,000 calories, because their body is literally not stopping burning fat and they need to eat more to stop themselves from getting to basically death. Now, what are the risks of all of these? Okay. And hell on earth, there is a lot of them. So let's start off with the basics. Acne, alteration to menstrual cycle in women, decline in sperm production in men, obviously, impotence. Now let's go to a few of the more serious ones. Aggression, high blood pressure, liver damage, kidney failure, heart disease. I don't think there is a single point in life where someone who is not considering to take this professionally should take these things. There's also something called human growth hormone, also known as HGH. Now, this basically stimulates the synthesis of collagen, and anyone who does not know what this does, it basically just strengthens cartilage, bones, tendons, and ligaments, and it stimulates the liver to produce more growth factors. So, what are the perks for adults? It increases your red blood cells, which means more oxygen being delivered to your muscles, better aerobic performance. That sounds great. Boosts your heart function. Again, with increased red blood cell count, you could have probably guessed that it will have somewhat of an effect on your heart function, sorry. Stimulates breakdown of fat, increase muscle mass and strength. So by the looks of it, this sounds great. Sounds perfect. However, what risks does this have in adults? So, acromegaly, which is the excessive growth of the head, feet, and hands, and people who have this have got a approximate mortality age of 40 years old. Possible heart failure due to the digestive system increasing in size. Diabetes, muscle, joint, and bone pain. That is to be expected, considering that your basically cartilage, your tendons, your ligaments are just growing non-stop. Osteoarthritis, again, that is also linked to muscle, joint, and bone pain, and probably the synthesis of collagen. Cardiac limitations, boosts your heart function, but if you start putting extra stress on that, guess what? That is a heart attack waiting to happen, my friend. Hypertension, which basically is just, again, high blood pressure. And they've got cardiovascular disease, which is not ideal. Now, as always, everything that I mention in this podcast will be linked down in the info section on Spotify or the description in YouTube or any of that kind of stuff. I'm not sure what the deal is with Apple Music. I don't know if they have a description. I'm not going to lie to you. I've never really looked at Apple Music. However, let's go through, because obviously, I briefly mentioned Clenbuterol, I briefly mentioned Trenbolone and all that kind of stuff, and testosterone propionate. So Clenbuterol, what is its use? So the use of Clenbuterol is basically a fat shredding hormone. A fat shredding supplement. Now, what does this do? Okay, what are the side effects of it? So, side effects, non-stop shaking. I'm pretty sure I actually saw a forum somewhere on the internet where someone described it as like having really bad Parkinson's, and to the point where if you're eating soup, you put the soup on the spoon, and by the time the spoon gets to your mouth, half of that thing is on the floor. So you're fighting against extreme shakes, night sweats. So someone I remember, they also said that they woke up the next morning and it was as if they pissed the bed. They actually sweated that much. Obviously, you've got mood swings, aggression that comes with everything. Now, Trenbolone. Let's go to testosterone first. Testosterone, again, I don't think I really need to say much. This is the main androgenic hormone. Increases muscle size, muscle strength, all that kind of crap. I don't really need to say much more. Now, the godfather of all steroids, as a lot of people put it, Trenbolone. This stuff is extremely, and when I say extremely, I don't think I can actually explain how potent I mean. This thing has potency of 5 times as high as that of testosterone. It binds with high affinity to the progesterone receptor. Trenbolone binds the different receptors, basically. So when you're taking something that is 5 times the strength of your main androgenic hormone, you can't really expect it to end up well. And if you do expect it to end up well, I'm sorry, but you're a moron. You're flat out stupid. Obviously, if things like HRT or TRT or whatever, hormone replacement therapy, basically, they're very different from having like steroids like this. Like, for example, if you were to do, hormone replacement therapy, then that's fine. You consult a doctor, they take your blood, they see how much you need, they give you that equivalent dose, take it every week or every whenever, and you maintain your testosterone levels, which is fine. But then you look at things like what bodybuilders take, and you're looking at between 10 and 100 times the recommended medical dosing. And that is you're looking at 10 to 100 times. If you were to be getting 5 milligrams a week for replacement therapy, you're then looking at 500 milligrams a week for, and again, like, this is no exaggeration. I'll also link that video of Brandon Harding explaining everything in that in my in the description, because that was an eye opener for me. When it came to like, I was sat there, I was thinking, like, a lot of people are saying about them. I started doing research into it. I was like, like, would it be worth it? Would it be doing this? Would it be? So I just started thinking about it. Never seriously. I've already told myself I would never do steroids just for the giggles. I would just do them if I actually needed hormone replacement therapy or something like that. I would never just go in blindly and start injecting stuff into my ass, because that's not really fun. It's not really my idea of fun. But I looked at that video, right? I watched the video, and about halfway through, Like when he's talking about the reasons why he takes 5-HTP and why he takes things like melatonin or and stuff like that. It's like I was talking to Meg about it yesterday, and like the guy he's borderline breaking down. Like you can hear his voice start cracking at some point. So in my head, would I if anyone's asking themselves like, oh, I wonder if Alex has ever thought about it or whatever, then I'm gonna give you a plain fucking answer right here. No, God no, never. Why? There's quite a few reasons actually. So I'll give you reason number one. I like my testicles the size they are. That's my number one reason. Number two, aggression. A lot of this will affect people differently. So Brandon in his video, he mentioned that he doesn't actually have a change in aggression at all. But personally, I get aggy as soon as I haven't had breakfast. So if I was to then have mood swings because of like a steroid or something, then that's like, yeah, no, I'd be a pain to be around 100%. I will be the first person to hold my hand up and say that I'm a pain in the ass first thing in the morning. So me on something like that would yeah, it wouldn't go well. But then you also look at other things, like you risk fertility, you risk heart failure, you risk liver damage, you risk kidney failure. Like you've got to look at these things. You've got to ask yourself, where do you draw the line of something like this being worth it? And like, by no means am I trying to be an asshole to anyone who is using them. Like, if you're using them, you're hoping to go get a pro card or hoping to, as I said, make a career out of this, then yeah, fair play. But if you're not using to do stuff like that, you need to look back, look at yourself and think bigger picture. Like there was a bloke that used to go to my gym, and I remember this very well. Excuse me. He was a massive guy. He started training and about, 6 weeks in? So bear in mind, this guy's not been training for more than 6 weeks, more than 2 months. And 6 weeks in, he turns around and he's like, right, you know what? I'm tired of not seeing fast enough progress. I'm going to jump on juice. I'm like, bro, what the Like, at 6 weeks in, you haven't even given your body enough time. Like, I have people coming in and they want to maybe lose a stone in 6 weeks. And I'm like, yeah, it's doable, but it's not recommended. I'd recommend you do it a little bit longer. And it's like, what? Like, quite simply, what the fuck? You come in, you've barely done any exercise and you expect to be the size of Arnie. And when we asked him, we were like, why are you doing this? And he was like, oh, quite simply, I just want to be big. I was like, do you not have any hopes of competition or anything like that? I was like, no, not really. I'm just doing it for fun. And when I asked him out of curiosity, of course, I said, well, what about the consequences? Like, you're putting a massive strain on your heart. And there's also a guy that I worked with who wants to compete. So he started hopping on gear, and we had fitness one day, and he turned around to us and he was like, I can't do it. I feel like my heart's gonna explode. Bearing in mind the guy is 18, so at that point you should be fit as a fiddle. But he turned around and he was like, I feel like my heart is gonna explode. I'm sorry, I can't do this. So, but going back to the first guy, I said, what about the consequences? You risk this, you risk that, you risk not being able to have kids. And he was like, I don't really care about anything, long term at the moment. He was basically living his life there and then, which, don't get me wrong, I've got no issue with. But when you look at the larger picture, right, let's say he changes his mind and someday he wants to have kids, or, you know, I don't know, he wants to fucking do a triathlon for all I care, he won't be able to. If he's still on gear, the thought of doing a triathlon would break his heart alone. Like, he'll explode. So if you are, you know, thinking of doing something like this, and I appreciate, you know, this podcast has been a little bit shorter than normal, but you know, I don't think that there's a lot more to talk about on steroids and on this matter. If you are debating on getting on them, or if you have, and you know, you're also looking at you know, whether you should carry on or whether you should just leave it in the past, you got to ask yourself, what do you want from your future, essentially? Because if you want to, you know, be healthy at 40 years old or at 50 years old or whatever, would you be happy sacrificing your health long term for a bit more muscle short term? Or would you rather, like, pretty much, I don't want to say secure, because, you know, again, no one ever knows what's going to happen, and I might be crossing a road like tomorrow morning and a bus decides, hey, he looks like a good target, splat. But would you want to risk your life long term for a short term goal? And yeah, I don't think, in my head, and again, you know, I've never considered taking steroids. I never thought to myself, oh, if I could, I would. But I've, like, you know, I've been asked, and I thought, you know, I'll entertain the idea. So I said, you know, would you? And I'm like, well, no. But if I was to entertain it further, I'd be like, well, why would I want to risk, right, my health, my future chances of having children and, you know, living the life that I always wanted to, kind of thing? Why would I risk that for a few extra inches on my bicep and a lot of inches less on my and, you know, along with that comes things like ED. Like, you know, you if you're a bloke, you risk things like erectile dysfunction. If you're a woman, you risk plus, yeah, as a bloke, you also risk getting gyno, which is not great. So don't get your titties in a twist. Whereas if you're a woman and you're doing things like this, then you also risk quite a few things, actually. You risk start growing out facial hair. That happened. And there's actually a bodybuilder, I can't remember, it was a few years ago, and she was on so many steroids to the point where her bits started growing outwards. And yeah, I'm gonna just leave it at that. I'm gonna leave you with that idea, because that was very concerning. I mean, you know, a transsexual operation is one thing, but growing a dick because you're consuming too much steroids is a whole different ball game. So, you know, I'm gonna leave the end of this podcast with this question for anyone who, you know, might have had the temptation or whatever to do these kind of things. And, you know, like, would you risk long term for just an extra couple of inches on your bicep, on your chest, or whatever shit long term? Or would you rather kind of keep your long term health and just look natural? And if anyone has ever, you know, been on steroids or whatever, please, like, do drop me a message and tell me what you've tried and what was your experience with it, because I'm very interested in seeing what people, you know, what effects did they have on you? Did you feel aggression if you've done things like testosterone or trenbolone? Did you feel the bad shakes or the night sweats doing Clen? Did you, have joint pains because X, Y, Z? Like, so if you have tried anything, feel free to get in touch with me on Instagram, because I'm really curious to know about how things affect different people. At the end of the day, I don't want to say I am a physiologist, but I am training in physiology. So I am really interested in that side of supplementation, sports, fitness, that kind of thing. So again, please do feel free to contact me and let me know, because I'd be really interested to have a chat with you and kind of pick your brain a little bit. But yeah, no, I'm going to leave this one here. Again, I appreciate it's going to be a little bit of a shorter one. However, I don't think there's a lot more to talk about. I could go into fake naturals, but that's just a 3-hour podcast for another day, because if you get me started on that, it will never ever stop. It's not a lot of things that piss me off, but people claiming they're natural when they're not. Oh, that grinds my fucking gears. But yeah, thank you for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you tuning in on your Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday evening. I don't know what you class as 4 o'clock. I'd probably class it as evening, but that's just me. Thank you for joining in. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your week. Jack, thank you again, my guy, for the recommendation. It was a hell of a good read. And again, if anyone's got any form of interest in, reading up on, a little bit of a nighttime reading on anything that I spoke about, I will put all of the sources in the comment, but in the description box below. There was actually a PhD student that did a very good video on the physiology of steroids, so I will also leave that there. Thank you guys for joining. I will see you all next week, where we will actually be talking about blood flow restriction training. Yep, it's exactly what it sounds like. You restrict your blood flow and you do some exercises, basically. Very interesting, very, at the moment, up in the air about its safety. However, I'll see you all next week for that podcast. Take care of yourself, stay safe, and have a damn good rest of this week.